time for the Curtis Riggs Show. The head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm. The Curtis Riggs Show on FM 98.1, AM 1230, KWSN, and KWSN.com. The Curtis Riggs Show being brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute. Now, here's your host of the Curtis Riggs Show, the voice of the Sioux Falls Storm, Rich Rosty.
And good afternoon and hi, everybody. I'm Rich Rosty, and welcome to the Curtis Riggs Show. And it's United Bowl week, as the Storm will be playing the Iowa Barnstormers in the United Bowl 2018 this Saturday in Des Moines, Iowa. Game time is at 1:05, and you can hear the game on our sister station, Kello News Talk, AM 1320 and FM 107.9. During today's Curtis Riggs Show, we'll be talking to the head coach about the Storm 8 players that were named to the first and second team All-IFL teams. We'll also talk about the Iowa Barnstormers and how the Storm and the Barnstormers match up in this championship game. And rounding out the show is Storm offensive lineman Lawrence Martin IV, who was one of those named to the first team All-IFL offensive line. Now, the Curtis Riggs Show is proudly presented each week by the official Storm sports medicine providers, Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital, the Storm official healthcare team, and the only 5-star rated hospital in Sioux Falls, and by Orthopedic Institute, the one to trust. Coming up next, he is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Curtis Riggs, and you're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show right here on FM 98.1, AM 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN.
The biggest difference in Boyer and other truck dealerships is the fact that we're an employee-owned company. From the front of the building with the sales to the back of the building with service and parts, you're dealing with the owner of the company. We have the smallest vehicles all the way up to the biggest vehicles. We're a truck dealer by heart and by design. We deal in the whole gamut of the vehicles. There's not a lot of dealers that do that. But this is a relationship business, and I enjoy the relationships a lot.
You're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosty.
And each week, our opening interview with Storm head coach Curtis Riggs is brought to you by the great folks over at Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Storm sponsor since day one, Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Come see what fresh really is, and they deliver anywhere in Sioux Falls, and their subs are just breader. He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Curtis Riggs. Coach, it is United Bowl week, and it's an interesting week because you got a holiday right in the middle of it. How is that screwing up your plans, or is it working out pretty well?
Well, it's nice not having to worry about having to travel somewhere. I mean, knowing that we can just stay put here, because you're right, it's right in the middle of, practice and all of those things. So that part's been nice, but yeah, it is a little awkward.
Now, coming into this week is the week that they have the announcement of all of the awards throughout the course of the season. Coming up tomorrow, they're going to be talking about the offensive and defensive rookies of the year. Wednesday, it's the offensive, defensive, and special teams players of the year. Thursday, MVP of the league and also coach of the year. But today they announced the Storm, or the All-IFL teams, and the Sioux Falls Storm had 8 honorees. And I want to talk about these guys. I want to go through the list, and I just want to get a word of what they have meant to the Storm this year. But those on first-team offense was wide receiver Judd Harold, offensive lineman Forrestall Hickman, and Lawrence Martin IV. And we'll be talking to Lawrence later on in the show. First-team defense was Trey Wofford. And the second-team offense, Lorenzo Brown at quarterback, running back Lyle McCombs, and second-team defense, Jabari Gorman, and special-team kicker was Miles Bergner. Lyle McCombs was also named the most improved player on the year. But I just want to go through some of these guys and just say what comes to mind as far as, like, Judd Harold is concerned, Coach.
Well, blue collar. I mean, I think that describes him perfectly, having to do all the dirty work and really going out and earning every bit of what he's achieved. He does a lot of his work is off the field and in practice, and that's what's allowed him to be in that position, and well-deserved.
And I've called him at times Mr. Middle because he seems to be able to control that middle. He finds that seam, he finds that opening, and he is really a go-to back or a wide receiver for the quarterback in any given play that he can find himself open across the middle.
Yeah, I mean, he's that guy that even when things are covered, you still have a chance if you throw it to him because he uses his body so well and can go get the ball too.
A couple of offensive linemen, first time with the Sioux Falls Storm, Forrestal Hickman and Lawrence Martin IV, both named to first-team offense. The offensive line only allowed 5 sacks throughout the course of the year, I believe, or was it 10? I think 5. And just outstanding offensive line play. Tell us about Forrestal Hickman and Lawrence Martin.
Well, I think Lawrence was an easy one. I think he fits the mold of some of the great ones we've had, Charlie Sanders and John Simchenko, and we've had a lot of really good offensive linemen, and to have a center especially is so key to the success of what we do offensively. And I thought he's been very dominating this year. I think the only one that, at times can beat Lawrence is maybe Lawrence, when he gets somewhat bored with the game a little bit, because sometimes it's kind of like Mania Smith. I mean, people just won't rush against him because they know they can't beat him. Forrestal, though, I thought was a very pleasant surprise. I think he's definitely a first-team guy, but, he missed 4 games this year. 4 games with injury or because we were sitting him out to protect him. And so I didn't think he would get that, but I think that shows, that he impressed a lot of the coaches and to beat out, especially the 2 guys from Arizona, or the 1 guy from Arizona that made second team, and the kid from Iowa too. I thought were all really good. I thought we had some really quality tackles in the league this year.
Then first team defense, Trey Wofford.
Well, Trey, I mean, he just flies all over the field. And Arizona, it was about midseason, they called and reached out to us and asked if we'd be interested in trading Trey. And I think my response was, yeah, sure, I'll trade Trey for Monroe, 2 of your offensive linemen, 3 of your defensive linemen. Throw that monster linebacker in there, and he goes, yeah, all right, I get the point. And it's like he's one definitely that is off limits, and he just, we had an annual bye week wiffle ball game the other night, and he plays hard all the time. I mean, even wiffle ball, he hits a ground ball, and he is sprinting full speed down to first base, like the game is on the line, and that's, that's how he plays. He makes some mistakes, but you love him and you love watching him because of how hard he plays.
First team kicker, Miles Bergner.
Yeah, Miles has been outstanding. I mean, I think Miles could, easily be one of the top candidates for MVP of the league too. I think he's been very good. He far exceeds everyone else in the kicking categories, and some people were critical of him because he had somewhat of a slow start, but he has been very good, and he does a very nice job with his craft, especially off the field with his own preparation.
Mm-hmm. One of the things you mentioned to me at the start of the season that you didn't really expect him to be around the whole season because he was that good. And I think because he had maybe a slow start getting used to the much more narrow goalposts, kind of slowed him up for a while, but he has finished the season, absolutely top-notch as far as the entire league is concerned as far as kicking.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say getting used to the goal because, he played just a few games with Colorado last year. I think more so not even being able to kick or practice with goalposts affected him more than anything else with his slow start. But, he has had arena teams. In fact, I know one of the arena teams wants to bring him in right after the championship game. But it boggles my mind, though, to think he can't get a shot in the CFL or even into an NFL camp to take a look at him. But he's had a great year, and I think he's been everything we thought he would be.
Then on second team, all IFL offense, quarterback Lorenzo Brown, running back Lyle McCombs, most improved player also, but those two guys both second team all IFL.
Yeah, and I think Lorenzo's had definitely a first-team year. I mean, I think, you look at he and Drew's stats; they're very comparable in a lot of areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he has really come back well after last year. And he still has areas he can improve if he really wanted to. I mean, there's things he could still get better at. And then Lyle, it's funny, he gets tagged as most improved. Last year he was hurt when he was with Nebraska and didn't play the majority of the season. But he's a guy, I don't know if improved is a way to tag him, because at least I thought when he played for Nebraska, he was very explosive and very talented. He's come in and done a very good job, especially areas where you didn't think he would excel, like blocking, picking up the middle linebacker. Those are the things that I thought differentiated him between a lot of the other backs in the league.
And the last one was on the second team defense, Jabari Gorman.
Yeah, Jabari's had quite a few interceptions this year. I thought he might get first team. He's played hobbled, though, quite a bit of the year, and he's not wanting to try to complain or take things off, and very versatile. We've been able to play him between, corner and safety, and has a very good football IQ when he goes out there and plays. So, I think he's one that could have easily been a first-team guy, too.
Well, congratulations to all of the Storm players that were honored in first and second team. All IFL teams still to come will be the Rookies of the Year, Special Teams, Offense and Defense Players of the Year, and also the MVP and the Coach of the Year. That will be named on Thursday. But, Coach, when we come back, we'll start talking about the Iowa Barnstormers. It's United Bowl week, and you're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show. This segment brought to you by Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Come see what fresh really is. They deliver anywhere in Sioux Falls, and their subs are just better. We'll be back right after this.
So you need to see a doctor.
If you like to bowl, roll on into Eastway Bowl. Hey, wait a minute. Eastway Bowl is more than just bowling. It's a full of fun entertainment, games, and more games, plus food. Great food. Come into our full-service sports bar and grill where you'll find terrific drinks with our popular late-night specials. Watch all your favorite sporting events at Eastway. Visit our website to make your bowling reservations and find out more about the full fun experience. Eastway Bowl and Entertainment Center, where there's something for everyone.
You're listening to The Curtis Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosti.
And this segment of The Curtis Riggs Show is brought to you by Eastway Bowl, the perfect spot for family fun. Eastway Sports Lounge, the official Storm Road Game viewing party hosts. And the next viewing party is this Saturday, July 7th, as the Storm going to be down to Des Moines, Iowa, to take on the Barnstormers. It's United Bowl 2018, and you can watch it with other Storm fans out to Eastway Lounge. He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Curtis Riggs. Coach, we're going to be talking about the Iowa Barnstormers, and it's been a long time for them since they've been in the a championship game, and in fact, it goes all the way back to 1996 since they hosted a championship game. And Kurt Warner was the quarterback. Jay Gruden was the quarterback of the opposing team, Tampa Bay Storm. John Gregory was the head coach. Kirk Herbstreit and Mike Golick were the two color commentators for the ESPN broadcast. And that ball game was played in front of 11,000 people, and it's ranked number 3 as AFL's all-time greatest games. That's the last time that they hosted a championship, so I'd have to believe that right now the Iowa Barnstormers are a little bit excited about hosting another one.
Yeah, boy, those are some a lot of names that really pop out. And to me personally, even Coach Gregory, I got to know him, and but I remember seeing the Barnstormers when they were popular in the Arena League and when Kurt Warner was there, and they would just pack that. I think they called it the Barn.
That's exactly right.
And they would pack that place in, and was exciting. I know, they're really fired up for this, and I know their radio stations, and it seems like they've really got a lot of people involved to try to help get people there and doing a lot of promotional things, which is great. I mean, I hope it's a crazy atmosphere, because that brings more to the league and makes it more fun for these players.
Well, there's no doubt about that, and we found that out a couple weeks ago down in Arizona. They're just all a part of the importance of the game. When you have a crowd like that, it just builds everything high. Everybody plays better. You're on another level. But Iowa has been kind of playing at another level. You talked about Drew Powell, their quarterback. He is leading in most categories. However, Lorenzo Brown and he are so close in so many. I was getting ready for the broadcast, putting my notes together, and I got tired of writing down, because either 1 and 2 or 2 and 1, 2 and 3, 1 and 3. Those guys are at the top of the game, both of them, Lorenzo Brown and Drew Powell. So this is going to be a classic matchup. And we've talked about Drew Powell a lot of times, but I want to talk about the subtle things that maybe we don't always see in a ball game. What do you think are some of the subtleties of this game coming up on Saturday against the Barnstormers?
Well, I think some definite subtleties will be, some of the short yardage situations. Drew's very tough to stop, and can you win those? Against Arizona, we were not good on fourth down situations, stopping them. And against Iowa, we're going to have to. We're going to have to win some of those, because they're going to go for them. Mm-hmm. I mean, with a guy like Drew back there, you got to try to stop them. But, you also have to expect trickery. I mean, Coach Wooten likes to dabble in the bag of tricks, and he's got the guys to do it too. A guy like Valentine who can throw, and a crafty veteran receiver like Roland, or a speedy, guy that in space like Augustine. All of those guys, even if they bring in their big fullback, DJ Butler, who played tight end at Louisville, mm-hmm. He can do different things. So they have the guys to do some things, and you got to be ready for them. But I think the subtle thing that people will forget about is those short yardage or fourth down situations.
One of the things when you talk about the subtleties like that, people kind of put it on the back burner, but the kicking game and special teams, I think, are going to be one of those subtle factors in the outcome of this contest. Tell us what your thoughts are about that.
Well, I think they are, yeah, and I would almost, say those aren't subtleties. Those are huge factors, especially, if you look at previous games with us and them, or even their previous games with Arizona, how close some of them are. I think you can't take anything for granted. Those extra points are so valuable and could be a difference maker. You're not thinking of it in the first quarter, mm-hmm. but in the fourth quarter, when you're down 1 and having to go for 2, that's when you start to think of, that darn extra point that you took for granted that first quarter. So that's something we've harped heavily on about. Cannot take plays off. Everyone is so valuable. And likewise, when you're on defense, going after every single kick every time.
One of the things that you talked to me about on the trip out to Arizona was that the average margin of victory this year in the IFL was 3.21 points. That's amazing how close it was.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, you think about, and what's crazy about that is such a distortion in records mm-hmm. between the top 3 teams and the bottom 3 teams. It's so, there's just such a difference, and it's so disproportionate with the records. You would never expect that. But, even the teams, Cedar and Green Bay takes us to triple overtime. Cedar takes Arizona to 84-83 game. Mm-hmm. It was an exciting year, and I think we had, more than half of our games were a touchdown less, and it was constant for us.
Another interesting statistic I found, turnover margin, plus 12 for Iowa, plus 7 for the Sioux Falls Storm. As in all games, turnovers will be critical.
Yeah, we were doing a lot better than that until we faced Iowa the last time, and Lorenzo had 3 interceptions. it's been very good for Iowa because they've been able to get a lot of interceptions. And then Drew doesn't throw very many either. And so you've really got to take advantage of those. And likewise, you look at even the game we got down 21-0. When we played them at home, the second time we played them, we came back to take the lead in that game. And then it was back and forth, and then here we sit down 3 with the ball, and we throw an interception. It bounces off Lyle McComb's pads right into the Wycliffe's hands, and they pick it off, and that was kind of the difference. They went up 2 scores, and we couldn't catch up then that late in the game. I mean, so the turnovers are critical and really have been our nemesis. So when we control those, we're pretty good, but when we turn it over and give extra possessions, we're pretty average.
Well, the Iowa Barnstormers don't give up very many points. They have a very good defense. What makes their defense so tough?
Well, I think their guys do their job really well. I think, every guy knows their responsibility, and they don't go above or beyond that. They do a good job protecting their linebacker. I thought he is the most improved player. I thought from last year, hardly even noticed him. He played some D-line, moving the linebacker, even from the beginning of the season to this point now, has drastically improved, is much more comfortable at the linebacker spot, has really had a great year for them. But I think the thing that makes them the best, though, Rich, is what I said at the beginning, is the guys all just do their job. They're a very good defense as a unit, not really superstars, but very good at what they do.
The linebacker you were talking about, Zachary Allen, played at Wake Forest. He's a big one, 6'2", 240, leading tackler, 76 tackles. He had 4 tackles, a tackle for loss, and 3 broken passes against Nebraska in that ball game. Well, Coach, we've talked a little bit about their defense. They only give up 35 points a contest. They're really tough. Later on in the show, we're going to be talking about the offense of the Iowa Barnstormers, and we'll have more of a matchup breakdown there, then also maybe what's in store for Iowa from the Sioux Falls Storm standpoint. So we'll talk to you after a bit, Coach.
Okay. Thanks, Rich.
He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Curtis Riggs. And this segment brought to you by Eastway Bowl, the perfect spot for family fun. Eastway Sports Lounge, the official Storm road game viewing party hosts. And the next viewing party, Saturday, United Bowl down in Des Moines. And you can watch it with other Storm fans at Eastway Sports Lounge. We'll be back with more of the Curtis Riggs Show after we pause for this timeout. We'll be back right after this.
I'm Bill Lapp.
The Rosties wanted their new house to be unique, so they went back to Fireplace Pros. The upstairs is traditional, but the downstairs is very modern. They are delighted.
We wanted a different look and feel within our house, and Fireplace Pros, as always, helped us make it happen. They're the best.
Visit us on the web or stop by your nearest Heat & Glow or Heatolator dealer. Fireplace Pros, Heat & Glow, and Heatolator. You're going to love the way your home feels.
You're listening to The Curtis Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosty.
And this segment of The Curtis Riggs Show is brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, and feel better. And
Florida,
okay.
After leaving junior college in California.
Oh, so you kind of went coast to coast.
Yes, sir.
Where'd you go to junior college in California?
Merced College.
Okay, where was that?
Right an hour north of Fresno.
Oh, okay. That's where it was. So you went to Southern Florida, and I'm going to back up just a little bit. You know, you're Lawrence Martin IV. Did you know your great-grandfather, of whom was the first namesake?
No.
And is the fourth. Oftentimes they didn't even know the person that did. I'm sure that the family must have thought a lot about him to keep the progression of the name going. Tell us what they've told you about him.
He was a hard worker, military guy, and had a very deep voice, strong and tall. From most of the stories I was getting.
So he was in the military?
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, I just think it's really important, and I've always said when I announce your name, I always add the fourth, because there's three others in front of you that would be feel bad if I didn't include that.
There's actually one behind me, too.
Oh, there is? There's a fifth?
Yeah, just 14 months.
Oh, congratulations. Good for you. Well, I tell you what, you went to Southern Florida. Tell us a little bit about your time down there.
Came in as a junior, played offensive line my junior year there. Then senior year, played the first 4 games as an offensive lineman. Then Coach Taggart was my coach. Actually pulled me in the office and asked if I wanted to play fullback and tight end for the remainder of the year.
Really?
So that's what I ended up playing. Yes, sir.
So what size were you at playing those positions?
320.
How many catches did you have?
1 catch, 13 yards against University of Houston.
Okay. I take it your role was more of a blocking tight end.
Yes, sir.
Well, when did you get converted to center?
Actually, when I first started playing in the IFL, I played center for Nebraska Danger, and that was my first time ever playing center.
So tell us what that transition was like. And we're talking to Lawrence Martin IV on the Curtis Riggs Show, but tell us about that transition from offensive lineman to center, because that is an entirely different ballgame for you.
It was difficult, but the more reps I had, the better I got at it. Just far as snapping the ball, and if we go on a different count, have to look back at the quarterback. It was frustrating the first 4 games, probably the first year that I actually played it. It was frustrating for me. I didn't understand why I was playing it, but I ended up committing to it fully the second year, and here we are today.
Well, evidently your transition has been noticed, because you were named to the IFL first team all offensive lineman as a center. Congratulations for that, and your transition has been very good for you to be recognized in this way.
Thank you.
So when you talk about playing center, what are all of the things that you have to do on every play that a lot of people don't even realize you have to do? From the time you break huddle until you get over the ball.
Call the mic. I got to call the linebacker, make sure my 2 guards are on the same page as me. Look between my legs, snap, see the quarterback, give me a signal, and snap the ball.
And then you have to block somebody that's coming at you right across from you.
And then block. Yes, sir.
That's kind of an important thing, because you got your hand out of position because you've just snapped it and he's coming at you. Your transition has to be instant, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
So what's the toughest part? Do you have any secrets about how to remember the count?
Not really. Just kind of repetition in practice.
Okay.
Knowing, relaying it on the way to the line of scrimmage, and knowing that your guards, that my 2 guards have trust in me that I will remember the snap count, as well as them telling me.
I had a center one time that he said he would put his fingers on a different lace to indicate the different count, just so that he would always remember.
Yeah, I should try that. Maybe I'll work on that now.
Yeah, because he said by the time you go up there and you start looking around, all of a sudden they got a different defense. You call the defense, and you're looking around, all of a sudden, what's the count? Then he could always look down and see where his finger was on that second lace, and then he knew it was on a different count than on the first sound. Tell us what it's been like for you to join the Sioux Falls Storm. You've been around the league and things like that, but what has it been different about here?
It's been a blessing. It's been a change of culture and experience is one thing, and just the rhythm of the team. It's been a blast for me.
Well, whenever I see you when I'm at practice, I usually hear you before I see you. You got a great big voice and laugh, probably like your great grandfather, from what I've heard. And you do have fun during practice, don't you, Lawrence?
Yes, sir. I try to lighten the mood most of the practice. So everybody's on ease and as well as get everything that we need to get accomplished for that practice. But I feel like you always have to have that one guy who can lighten the mood. So I try to be that for the team.
Well, you do it very well. And I appreciate you being on the Curtis Riggs Show. Congratulations on being named first team All-IFL offensive lineman, and thank you so very much for what you do to the Sioux Falls Storm, and my best to you this weekend as the Storm takes on Iowa for the United Bowl Championship.
I appreciate it.
We'll see you on the bus on Friday.
All right, see you too.
Very good. He is Lawrence Martin, the fourth offensive lineman with the Sioux Falls Storm. And this segment brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. We'll be back with more of the Curtis Riggs Show right after this.
There's a storm.
Your body is a complex arrangement of bone and tissue that requires only the best to maintain it. At Orthopedic Institute, that's our specialty. Our services have been specifically tailored to provide the best orthopedic care in the region. Orthopedics is what we do. That's why Orthopedic Institute is the one to trust to keep your body in motion.
You're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosti.
And this segment of the Curtis Riggs Show brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. During this segment of the Curtis Riggs Show, we pause and send our deepest sympathies to the Iowa Barnstormers. Last Saturday, the Barnstormers color commentator for the radio broadcast, Larry Kotler, died during the flash floods that hit Des Moines. According to police reports, Mr. Kotler was in a stalled van when other occupants, and he was swept away by the raging waters and was drowned. The other occupants of the van escaped injury. Larry Kotler was the radio voice of the Drake University Bulldogs since 2005. He also worked for the Barnstormers as color commentator with Joe Stacy on Barnstormer radio broadcast. Mr. Kotler was considered a sportscasting icon in the Des Moines market and was loved by his many fans. I had met Larry several times and found him to be a true gentleman. On behalf of the Sioux Falls Storm, we send our most sincere sympathies to the Kotler family, the Barnstormer organization, and a special note of sympathy and support to Barnstormer radio sportscaster Joe Stacy, as he will be calling this United Bowl with an empty chair beside him. We'll be back with more of the Curtis Riggs Show right after this.
No matter what you do, getting the job.
Hey guys, Bellator lightweight champion Michael Chandler here. I'm here at one of my favorite places in the entire world, the wrestling room. But if there's one thing we know about wrestling rooms, they can get extremely dirty. We're talking skin infections, we're talking about funk, we're talking about smelly armpits, we're talking about all kinds of stuff. So, my friends at Pure and Clean Sports came up with an awesome solution. Spray it right on your skin, wipe it off, smells great, keeps you clean from the time you leave the mats to the time you can get home and shower. Not only is it the greatest skin defense in the entire world, it's the safest. Check them out, pureandcleansports.com.
You're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosti.
And each week, our game preview interview with Storm head coach Curtis Riggs is brought to you by the great folks at Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. 917 South Cliff Avenue, sliced fresh, baked fresh, made fresh. Come see what fresh really is at Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. And he is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Curtis Riggs. Coach, we talked about the defense of the Iowa Barnstormers. Let's talk a little bit about the offense. Getting ready for United Bowl. And it all starts with Drew Powell. Tell us about this young man and what he's done for this organization down in Iowa.
Well, he's definitely a difference maker. But I think, they have a lot of good pieces around him. I mean, even when he was out, they still didn't lose a game. You know, and their backup quarterback was solid. They've got a veteran-led receiving core, talented tailback. But then when you put Drew in, yeah, he's just such a gritty football player, extremely competitive. You know, he's going to run for those extra yards. He make a simple mistake. He'll make a simple mistake, a huge mistake, really fast. And that's what it seems like he does over and over every game. And that's, you know, most likely why he'll be the MVP.
And I think that's a big part of it. He has had that kind of a year. He is that much of a difference maker. Okay, let's get down to the bottom line. Sioux Falls Storm going down to Iowa. Storm has defeated them twice this year. We've only lost to them once. It doesn't matter. This is a whole new game. It's going to be a new environment. It's going to a lot of things on the line. You talked about the subtle differences. You talked about the kicking game being huge. What's your bottom line feeling for the Sioux Falls Storm? What do they have to do to be successful on Saturday in the United Bowl?
Well, for us, it's turnovers. We can't give them the extra possessions. We've got to take care of the ball, and if it means get 3 points, get 3 points. I mean, because you know, I feel like it's going to be the difference, and to where if one team creates a mountain that you have to climb to get back into it, that could be asking a lot, especially for the road team in a very tough environment. So I think those are critical for us to try to stay out of those situations where Zoe feels like he's got to press to make plays.
Well, Coach, well answered, and I can't wait for this one. It's going to be a dandy. What time does the bus leave on Friday?
We're leaving at 8:33 a.m., Rich.
I'll set the alarm.
Okay. All right. Look forward to seeing you. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you very much. He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Curtis Riggs, and he's ready. There's no doubt about it, and the Storm will be too. This segment brought to you by Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs, 917 South Cliff Avenue. We'll be back and wrap up the Curtis Riggs Show right after this.
So you need to see a doctor.
Breathe easier when you have your ducts cleaned by Waterbury. Call us today.
Waiting to see a doctor?
What's taking so long?
It can take a while.
I don't have time for this.
Or longer than a while.
We've been here 2 hours.
Forever.
Hello?
What would you say if there was another option?
Finally.
Yes.
It's about time.
We're inclined to agree. It's about time for the best patient care. Sioux Falls Urgent Care.
Back for our final segment of the weekly podcast. If you want to go back and see previous line, Boyer Ford Trucks celebrating 30 years of being employee-owned, sales, parts, service, and we keep you going. Thanks to the Storm head coach Curtis Riggs, along with Lawrence Martin IV for being on the show today. This week, the Storm played the IFL Championship in the United Bowl. That's Saturday, 7:05, and you can hear the game on KELO News Talk, AM 1320 and FM 107.9. And the final Curtis Riggs Show will be next Monday, July 9th. Providers, Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and Orthopedic Institute. Canaries baseball coming up next. Carter Waddell with the call for you. Thanks for joining us for the Curtis Riggs Show. Good night, everybody.